those of you who aren't familiar, I'm glad she read from White Eagle. I really love White Eagle's work. And Yogananda and so on. Somebody might say, well, what are you into? Because White Eagle and Yogananda and then the Aquarian Gospel, and there's a theme there. It's called Christ consciousness. Yogananda said there's no higher consciousness you can attain on earth other than Christ consciousness, right? That's what they're doing. This is Christ consciousness. White Eagle, very I call it Christy, but very Christy, The consciousness of God within us, as Ernest Holmes says, that Christ is really the name of God in us. So that's, wow. How do you get higher than God consciousness? In fact, let's talk about that. Something I've kind of shared in various talks here and there, different themes, but still the same goal, which is the concept of God's will versus our will. A lot of people ask, how do I know if it's God's will? You're in a human form, and it's next to impossible to always know God's will. Because, no sooner do you say, I want nothing but God. I have to sneeze. Nothing but God, but I have to sneeze. Now you want two things, to sneeze and to find God. This body, this life, this world, right? It's, oh, Mani Padme, and the kids, shut up in there. I'm trying to meditate. Oh, Mani Padme. This world is going to do this. The ego has absolutely, and I don't exaggerate when I say zero interest in you finding God. Zero interest. Minus such and such would be its number. Because when you find God, the ego disappears. So it means it's destruction, but it's not like a destruction. You just, as you find God, the ego doesn't exist. It's not there. I fabricated it. So it disappears for lack of work. It's never fired. It's never hurt or beat up. It's just gone. It has no place. A prayer that I used, coined a phrase out of the Bible, but a prayer, one of the decrees I wrote, the prince of this world comes and finds nothing in me. What that means is the ego comes and finds no Velcro to stick to. And it tries. Well, what about your issues with your mother? Peace to her, peace to you, peace to me. No sticking. What about, and remember, and somebody once humiliated you, and it's not sticking. When it sticks, you're not bad. It's just because you're still hurt. Set a goal to no longer be hurt. Don't set a goal of stuffing it and calling yourself no longer wounded. Look at me. I don't have issues anymore. And inside it's like, boop, 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 pummeling yourself. It's more like, I feel really clear. I feel really clean. Yeah. If there's issues, I'm open. If they show up, I'll work on them when they show up. Just very open attitude, like last week's talk. Change what you can, accept what you can't. Know the truth, but respect the illusion. It's quite all right. This world's going to try. The world that the ego has miscreated is going to try. But underneath the world that the ego has fabricated or miscreated is the world of God. So heaven isn't a location. Buddha says it's actually right here, but you have to lift the veils to see it. Okay, where are the veils? Every limiting belief system is one of your veils, which includes resentments and hurts. But you have to lift the veils to see it. Well, wait, I thought I was going to a church and they told me it's when I die, as long as I do da-da-da, then I go to heaven. No, it does not work that way. You can't buy your way into heaven. You can't take heaven by storm. You can't even say, well, I've officially incarnated 10,000 times and I've heard that 10,000's the number. So I get to go to heaven now. They're just going to say, we're sending you to slow learner school on earth. 10,000 is not a boast. They're going to be like, wow, dude, what's going on up here? There's people that have made it in 10. You took 10,000, you still didn't get it? There's no easy way. There isn't. There's no shortcuts to heaven. But if there is, it's the acceptance of who we really are. Because then you're erasing all the stuff that you put between us and heaven. Make sense? That's how that stuff gets erased. Forgiveness, healing. So we're here to remember who we are and heal what we're not. Okay? And technically opposite order. We're here to heal what we are not and accept what we are. Some people just do a lot of the accepting who we are. Oh, I've heard I'm a divine being. Look at me, I'm a divine being. I bought a pendant that says I am divine. So that really proves it. That's trying to, shortcut. Have you healed what you are not? Oh, I don't believe in that. I just keep, affirming what I am. That's really nice, but here there's still, your foundation of your house is sinking and you keep painting the house. Oh, more cracks, putty. Look, aren't I wonderful? No, really not. Or you do the opposite. There's lots of people that do nothing but keep working on stuff and they never refill with the new self. They just keep working on more issues. I was really good about this, such and such. Then I went to this workshop and I found I have 15,000 other issues to work on. Never allowing yourself to work on and fill up with the presence of God. Do some gardening, bring out the rocks and the roots out of the garden, and then enjoy this year's garden. Yeah, but there were weeds. I know. Weed a little of it then, but don't pull up the good stuff. Next year we'll get some more of those. You see, it's a process. Gardening out the old, planting seeds for the new. It's a beautiful, beautiful dance in a sense. So a lot of people, what is God's will? What's my will? Technically, there are 3 wills that we all have within us. Generally, we say God's will, not God's will. But generally, 3 wills. There's God's will. There's the will of my soul. God's will, upper 3 chakras. The will of my soul, heart chakra. The will of my ego, lower 3 chakras. Not because our chakras are bad down here. It's that they've been hijacked by the ego. That's all. I can bring the will of God all the way to my root chakra. And then it's not a ego chakra or an ego will. But most people don't know that there's even 3 wills, let alone how to deal with them. We can say, I want God's will to be done. This is the hypocrisy of prayer. I want God's will to be done. God, I'm going into a divorce right now. I'm going into court today. But I'm spiritual. Let your will be done. You go into the court. The judge says to you, I'm going to give you 20% of everything. They get 80. And you're like, no, that's wrong. That's bad. What happened to God's will? Well, that can't be God's will. Oh, I see. God's will would have been, I get the 80. See, we go into prayers already telling God what to do. We don't, this is so typical humans, right? Okay, God, this is a big decision. Should I get this car that I really love, by the way, God, in case you don't know? I really love it, and it's blue, which is a spiritual color, God. Give me my car. So I really want this car, but I'm so torn because I only want your will. And I've prayed like that where I'm so involved in something, I'm not clear enough, and it's scary. God, please, don't let me influence this. I've been there. But we do this. We go, okay, a coin. God, heads, and if it's tails, I won't get the car. Boom. Okay, 2 out of 3. Everybody has cheated like that at least once. And you should laugh at yourself. You should just go, oh, I can't believe I did the 2 out of 3 thing. Just stop and maybe step away from the situation, although sometimes we have decisions. If you have a decision to make, just say, I'm going to make the best one I can and forgive myself for any stuff that I have in the way. If you have to make one right now and it's it, go for it. That's fine. If you've brought ego into the situation, it won't be long before it shows itself. So you're not going to miss out on any lessons, God's will versus my soul's will versus the ego's will. God's will is actually not what people think. There's religions that bring you up saying, what would you like to happen in your life? Well, I would like to meet my soulmate and find my soul's purpose. And yes, I'd like everything to go well. But, unfortunately, there's God's will. People act like God's will is a downer. And that actually dates back a couple thousand years as well to a guy named Jesus. He's in the Garden of Gethsemane. Everything is going to hell in a handbasket. Everybody's turning on him, his friends, everything's going really bad. Overnight, everything has turned. His friends, he knows because he's intuitive enough. That one's going to betray me. That one's going to deny me. These guys are going to run away when the soldiers get here. I'm in a few minutes going to be on my own, being beat up and then crucified. Not cool. So he prays. If it were up to me, I would say, let my will be done. What would his will be? Well, all kinds of things. You know, it's like being on a game show. I'll take non-crucifixion for 20, Alec. I mean, just use your imagination. Anything would be better than crucifixion. What did he mean by, if it were up to me, I would say, let this cup pass? What did he mean? South of France with Mary Magdalene. That's what it meant. It meant no crucifixion. Oh, I don't know. Lord, call me silly, call me picky, but maybe not being murdered. I don't know. I'm just channeling this, but think about that. Think about that. There's all kinds of things we could all come up with if you think about, what would my will be? Then he says, but let your will be done. Religion turned that into, your will is usually nice stuff. God's will is usually crucifixion. I'm telling you, everybody's been programmed with that. So we pray and go, I would really like my child to survive this illness. I would really like that job, but your will be done. Like that's the downer. God's will, if I really summarized it, God's will is your remembrance that you're God. That's the ultimate. You could say God's will is for you to be healthy. Well, if you're God, you would be healthy. So God's will is really just your remembrance. You are the will of God. Our remembrance is the will of God. In other words, this isn't like hopeful thinking. I'm not just praying for it. Goodness. God is only good. God only wishes, prays, affirms, holds space for us to experience good. But the stuff that doesn't go well, we project onto God. Well, I did some affirmations, but it didn't work out. So I guess God, we call divine timing. Everything gets projected over onto God. Some religions call it, well, honey, those are the mysteries of God. Mommy, why did Daddy die? Well, honey, the mysteries of God. And it's just always on God. Good stuff. Hey, I won the lottery. Most people don't mind saying I when good stuff's happening. Hey, I did this new affirmation, but it's I. Hey, I read this book and it changed my life. It healed me. I chose a book. I found a book. You see what I'm saying? It's so interesting. It's weird. Dark stuff onto God, good stuff onto me. So remember, God, yeah, who was that? Who was that talking? So God's will is only ever for your good. You may not know it's your good. You could say, well, I'm trying to stay objective, but I'm just asking that my partner come back. They left me and I'm hurting. God, and Michael said, you wish for my good. Well, I would be so much happier and good if my partner came back. God's going, okay, let's check the Akashic records here. Let's see. First, they murdered you in 5 different lifetimes. Second, we have a record of 49 times that you prayed to get rid of them. You asked us to get rid of them. Now, today you want them back. So call me silly, call me ungodly, but I'm pretty sure, according to the records. So we're just demented. We project these strange things onto God. So there are things like Job, great example, Job in the Bible, whose life went completely kaput in every way, shape, and form. When Job was trying to figure out why bad things were happening, he could have said, oh, mysteries of God. But what he did is he used his head the way we all do. You know, it might be this. Maybe it's a full moon. I think Mercury's retrograde. He tried everything. He had astrologers come over and advise. Everybody, New Age and fundamentalists, family members, they were the worst. They came to him to tell him why his life fell apart. You know what happened to Job at the end? He said, none of it rings true. No, it doesn't feel like mother issues. All the advice people gave, he said, it isn't that. Then he turns to God. And God's like, oh, it's about time. You've asked everybody's opinion but mine. Do you know why you're struggling, Job? And why these answers don't apply? He says, because everybody's searching for an answer about you in this lifetime. I knew you before you were Job, which means you have other lifetimes, dude, that you've done things and it's coming back to you. Meaning only here, I'm just saying this, meaning there are things behind the scenes that people don't usually know about. Whether it was your prayers or whether it was just the betterment for somebody to move on. What about people I loved that moved on? We didn't have any issues. Everything has its end. They're not gone. You're upset because they're gone. Open your eyes and you'll see them. See? So who has the problem? Them because they're dead? God because he didn't get your permission first? Or is it you that you just can't see them anymore? Things change when people learn to open their eyes. You know, and it's like you were never gone. People that have a vision of angels don't feel as separate from angels ever again. People that have a vision of Jesus, they don't feel as separate from Jesus anymore. They just know he's right here. So the opening of our eyes, especially our spiritual eye, changes everything. There is God's will and it's only goodness, but not your opinion of goodness. It's true goodness. It's like saying God wants you to be happy. Your head might go, you mean excited? No, that's addiction. Stimulation is addiction. God wants you to be happy through and through, content, at peace. See, happy doesn't mean just excited. It's like it's also this direction. It's in all ways to be at peace and happy, joy-filled. So we have thoughts about God wants us to be prosperous. Ka-ching! No, prosperous meaning you know how to manifest anything, not just cash. So our words already start constricting around what God is. So point being, God is love and wills only for us to remember that we too are made in the image of God. Say the word and this can happen. Part the seas. We can do anything. But when we align with God, we can do some things when we just exert the power of our ego, our lower mind. But it won't bring peace. It'll just bring stuff. So there's the middle one. There's the will of our soul, which I'll come back to. The will of the ego is very simple to summarize. It's the opposite of what I just said. It wills separation, conflict, holding on to hurts, limiting belief systems. So I got this divine in me that says total peace always. The other one that says never. Wow. That's why humans are sick. That's why we get tired. That's why we sleep at night. That's why we struggle with each other. Because inside of us is a battle between reality and illusion. The will of God that is just open, peace, joy. And this other thing that says you're undeserving. Even if there is a God that wills for your peace and happiness, you don't deserve it. Well, what did I do? And then memories, here they come. Remember you were, doing drugs. Remember you did this and naughty past lives and whatever else it does to us. That's called inner conflict. How do you expect your nervous system to not have anxiety disorders when you have reality and constant illusion beating up the realities of God, or trying to? The other will, there's God's will, ego's will. Ego's will is not real, but it nags you anyway. It tries to make itself seem real by working you over. In between God's will and the earthly ego will is our soul's will. Our soul's will has two halves. A half that is dedicated to listening to the will of God, and a half that is dedicated to listening to the ego. Is that all making sense? So that means I'm basically divided. I'm conflicted, as it's called. Divided we fall. And the fact that I'm split between these two voices, again, conflict, divided we fall. It's going to cause every challenge we could ever imagine. And so what we do sometimes is go, okay, but wait, I don't want the ego involved. I want God's will. But there's all kinds of reasons why we actually don't want God's will. I'll just go over a handful of them, okay? Why is that funny? So a part of us wants God's will, but another part doesn't. So learn to say that. Instead of saying, I don't know what the problem is. I totally want God's will. Do you see God's will and feel it 24/7? No. Then a part of you doesn't. Because this thing in you that's called your soul's will is also known as the chooser. The power to choose reality and illusion at any given time is yours. And only you can do that. God can't make you choose God. The ego can convince you to choose the ego, but God will not force you to choose God. God waits for you to brighten up enough to say, you know, I'm tired of this. I'm tired of limiting beliefs. I'm tired of thinking that I don't deserve. I'm tired of believing what my parents told me I was, or my religion, or my politics, or whatever it was. I'm fed up. It's called reaching bottom. So you can either come to it by reaching bottom and say, I'm not interested in what you have to say about me. Or you can use the positive reasons, which is, I'm just intrigued to hear what God has to say. Whichever one of those happens to get you to that other place, it's beautiful. It's perfect. It is what it is. At least you got there. The easy way or the hard way, but you got there. So there's a part of us when we say, well, you know, I wish I could just, choose the will of God at any given moment. Please remember a handful of things. First of all, we're not used to choosing the will of God. At least most people are not used to it. They might have a desperate moment, but I'm saying most people don't start and end every day with, your will be done. What would you have me do today? And this is brilliant because that is the prayer, the number one most important prayer for the goddess or divine feminine in us, which is our soul. The most important prayer is not, God, could I have a new car? The most important prayer is this. When you take your heart chakra and you open it up and they become arms that turn upwards and say, your will be done. The arms that come out and say, you show me what you'd like me to do and not do today. When your arms are in a humbled chalice-like state, this being the stem of the cup, when you're in this humbled chalice-like state and you say, I don't know, not the new age affirmation of, I know everything. It's, I don't know. Wow, that sounds so self-deprecating, so demeaning. You think so, because the last shall be first and the first shall be last. Those who affirm that, they're wonderful, they're great, whatever, you don't know. The more I think I know, the less I know. When we say, I don't know, even if you think you know, if you're a surgeon and you say, I'm the number one brain surgeon in the world, what do you mean I don't know? I don't want you working on me until you say, I think I know, but I'm open. I would rather you have that open thing going on. I don't want you missing any aneurysms, Stay open to where you go, I think I got this down pretty well, but I have this feeling there's something else going on. It's kind of cool. That's when intuition comes in. That's when the right brain, that's when the feminine comes in to complete a picture. So, one of the primary issues behind not hearing the voice of God all the time is that we're not used to calling on it. Practice calling on it. The fact that we're not used to calling on the will of God actually programs the subconscious to not even think of doing it. Make it a habit, and then the habit will serve you. Another common reason that we don't, call on or seem to get God's will coming through to us, there's an inner control freak. It's as simple as that. There's an inner, you could call it the rebellious one. It's just like they describe, in Lucifer in heaven became rebellious and he got cast out of heaven. That's me every day. Every day that I think I want God's will, but I say, no, I got it covered. God, I'm really open to meeting my soulmate. But let me give you a list of characteristics that they need to have. See, now, I'm not saying it's wrong for you to define what you're open to. That's okay. But how controlling are you about it? Did you say, I would like this, but I'm open? There's a common saying that I most often heard originating through Catherine Ponder, this or something better. Just live dangerously. Well, I don't want that into something better. I want it to be what, I remember one gal at a spiritual center. God, this is like almost 40 years ago. And I was, doing the prayer at a spiritual center or whatever. And I did this beautiful prayer affirmation about prosperity or whatever the topic was. And I'm going, yes, and we're calling it. And then I said, if it be your will. I had this gal approach me. You've done that before when you've spoken here. I don't like that because it kind of depresses the whole affirmation you did. I was like, wow. Bringing God in really puts a buzzkill out of this whole prayer. You know what I mean? It was like she was into the positive thinking. I want what I want and I'll get it. And when I threw in the, if it be God's will, no, Michael, you blew it. Just telling you, there's this control freak. A third reason that we keep things at a distance, God's will at a distance, is addiction. We're not just control freaks. We're addicted to not having God's will. We're addicted to drama. We're addicted to having to pray again about prosperity issues or relationship issues. Believe it or not, you have issues with a partner and then a second partner. Believe it or not, it starts to become a pattern. Pretty soon when you meet somebody, your brain's already going, they have 4 months. I mean, it's, I'm serious. It's a strange thing. And the fourth one that's similar to our addictions to brokenness, similar, but slightly different, is soul contracts and karma. We actually go God's will, but there's a part of you and I that go, yeah, but I got some karma I've got to pay up first. It's true. It's true. God could speak to the average human being right now. A vision, poof, the clouds part, there's billions of angels, Jesus is there, light everywhere, golden sprinkles of energy upon us, and God's voice can say, you can come home now. There's a part of us that goes, yeah, but see, I got this karma thing going on. Subconsciously, you're aware of all your karma. So part of us will not accept grace because we think we've got karma and soul contracts. Now, some of those are soul contracts that are like, agreements between two people maybe to work some issues out. Some soul contracts are, that person hurt me. Before we incarnated in this lifetime, we made an agreement they're going to come back and make it up to me. I'm not ascending until I get that apology. I swear to God, that's there. That's there. People actually spelling it all out. Not until I get, whatever it is. It's crazy. No, I'm not going until I'm young again. I want my youth back. Okay, incarnate again. And it'll last for a few years, and then it'll pass you by again, and you'll incarnate again. Till you're past your little soul contract or karma or limiting beliefs or whatever you got going on. The next thing that keeps us from accepting God's will is that, this is slightly overlap of addiction, is quick fixes. The ego promises quick fixes. So it's kind of like, I'm feeling very depressed. God appears and says, devote 1 hour to me and this will pass forever. The ego shows up and says, just drink that. You won't feel depressed at all. Wait a minute. Okay. 1 hour or 30 days of devotional prayer or a drink. The average human being goes, okay, I don't want to look bad because God's watching. Oh, nothing happened. Poof. You know, I mean, the average human being is going to find a way to prove that that doesn't work or it's not working well enough. You know, and it happens all the time with prayer. Prayer chaplains can say, okay, somebody came to me for prayer. You know, oh, money, boom, shakalaka, and, you know, or a brush downs and surges of energy, and they don't appear to the eyes to be healed. The ego is doing that. The ego is saying, I'm going to make sure there's a veil there that you don't know about, that you helped co-create, mind you, but you don't know about, that makes them still look sick so that you doubt your healing abilities. You're supposed to, our chaplains are trained to say, if I see that, I know I have to bring something to the altar to heal, not just my client. You see what I'm saying there? Because the ego wants you using your senses to establish what's true and not true. You don't have senses. Why would you use those? That's why the yogis, the great yogis have always said, do not trust your senses. Do not trust what you think you see. The senses are already hijacked because they work with the brain, and the brain's been hijacked because the brain works for the mind, and the mind's been hijacked. And the mind works for the soul, and the soul's been hijacked. The soul that's here has been hijacked and told to look down and out into what is real and not real. God says go in and up. Humans are all too often down and out in more ways than one. So not only do we want quick fixes, the ego is also basically saying, I'm going to keep you programmed so that you don't even know what is right and wrong anymore. You don't know what's God's will and ego's will. You think you're praying for so-and-so to come back into your life, but I've got you programmed to not even know if that's actually the best thing for you. Is that making sense? So these programs that just, I don't know which end is up anymore. A Course in Miracles is going to tell you that everything is flip-flopped. The things you see are the least real. The things you don't see are the most real. That everything is like the ego has flipped everything over, which is actually how our eyes work. Our eyes are actually wired backwards, and then the brain has to sort of translate everything it's seeing. So vision is an amazing metaphor for sane and insane, spiritually speaking. So the ego programs us, and it doesn't just end with saying, well, here's the problem. See, you have problems in your life, and I have solutions. So the ego convinces us that we have problems. And the number one problem it's got to push is you. The problems are you, and I feel really bad that you have problems. I have a real good solution, back to quick fixes. Blame someone else. And it seems to work. It actually seems to work. You know, I got fired. Oh my God, I feel scared. And then somebody says, oh, you know, it's the boss. He's a jerk. You're right. And you start to feel relieved. It's like, you know, this big air bubble here, and you burp it and you go, I'm so much better now. But that's not what heals us. So the ego's got us programmed that we have problems. There are these quick fix solutions. But what's really, really also messed up is the ego also tells you, don't look inside for the solutions because you might find God. Well, that sounds like a good thing. No, because if there's a God, and you and I agree that you have problems, if there's a God, guess who created you with those problems? Must be God, the ego tells us. And then it says, so if I were you, I wouldn't go looking too hard for that guy. He's the one that miscreated you. I can help you find solutions right now. Blame, projection. Is that making sense? So it's this number 6, I think we're on, is that the ego will make you afraid of God, which is the solution. Because returning to the I am that I am gives me everything I need. I'm God. I'm one with God again. The ego cannot let you go there. It has to make you afraid of going there. So that's why, and it's sort of logical. It's just never true. See, logic isn't always true. So the ego makes you go, that sounds logical. I don't want to admit that I'm afraid of God, but I think I'm afraid of God. To be able to sit when you do forgiveness work ever, prayer work ever, try it now and again, because it actually brings up unusual triggers. Ones that you kind of won't be comfortable with when you say, I think today I'm going to do some forgiveness with God. It sounds weird, sacrilegious. It sounds untrue. If it's so easy, if it's so much not a problem, then try it. It's very beautiful, because there's nothing on the other side of that process that judges, that hates, that hurts. And then we start to go, oh my God, it was the ego all along. And why was the ego there? Like when people talk about, I don't believe there's a God, one of the things they always bring up, there wouldn't be war. Do you see what they just did? What do you mean there wouldn't be war? To God, there isn't. To you and I, there is. So where's the problem? God created war? No, God did not create war. So you have to be that deep of a consciousness to be able to resolve that technique that the ego's using that says the problem is God. You can't trust God. God created war and rape and hurt, of hunger. And you have to be able to go to a deeper level of consciousness that says, I actually now know that the logic, God did this, must mean he's a bad God, isn't true. We created war. Where? How? The chooser. Remember I called this the chooser? Today, I know that I would love peace and joy, but I'm angry, so I want to vent it in the form of war. War isn't just global war. Every time I'm angry at you, it creates this wonderful little dark cloud that adds to the dark cloud that surrounds the earth. And then when it's time for global war, those that are the politicians that will make the wars, they get oppressed by that dark cloud, possessed by that darkness, and start wars. You see what I just did? They'll feed off a dark cloud that you contributed to. You could be sitting in a hot tub. A little bit of mist comes off the hot tub. Do you know that a cloud will be affected by the mist coming off your hot tub? There's not that much. Can't be. And it can't rise all the way up there without dissipating. Even science will tell you that every bit of precipitation or moisture from the ground, the dew off grass, will rise and become a cloud. So is hatred. My unhealed wounds affected that war in another country that I've never even heard of. So too does love. Love, peace, and joy. Love, peace, and joy. Create a cloud that isn't a dark cloud that blocks the sun. Create a cloud that is so pure, so beautiful that it's transparent. And the light of God, the sun, can still shine upon us. That's light work. It's not just trying to fight off the various forms of the dark cloud. Resist not evil. Get your work done. Heal your stuff. Don't fight it. Don't deny it. Don't minimize it. If it shows, heal, forgive, heal any way you can. Scream it into a pillow. Just don't project it, because then you'll continue it. Don't deny it. Don't project or blame it. Just own it. Man, I just remembered something someone said that really bothered me as a kid. This has been really great because we have a Monday group, which everybody's invited to, but it's on our Circle of Friends Facebook group. Those folks can join us on our Zoom program. The Zoom program is...
11 o'clock.
No, the name we actually have.
Circle of Friends.
Michael Mirdad Circle of Friends, right? And that's a Zoom program. And in there, you know, we cover all kinds of really, really amazing topics. This is something we've elaborated on various forms, you know, in that group. But this world seems to have so much power that it actually doesn't have. But I can't, at every podium throughout the world that I've ever been to and said, the ego is not real, you know, and so on, whatever the topic might be. I can't always say that. Now I can. Because I found people that are just about as nuts as I am. You know, and I mean that playfully, but that are just open. They get it. They're like, hey, you know what? Let's go. Let's go for it. There are places where it's still intimidating to hear that forgiveness of anything is where we all have to go. Justifying why something's not forgivable is not bad. It just means you're still hurt. I'm not hurt. They. There is no they. This is a hologram. And I can't say that in every spiritual sorry, in every spiritual center. Am I supposed to go, is this on? So you can't actually get away with saying that. You can actually get people triggered saying things like that in some spiritual centers. It's the strangest thing. So you can join us in other programs to share more about these topics, but always it comes back to the concept of love and forgiveness. And some people go, oh, yeah, I know about love and forgiveness. It's so easy to brush it off as one of those things you've heard about. In our circle of friends group, we pull a card usually each Monday. We pulled the last Monday the Hermit card. And the Hermit card meant going within. And that also means healing. But it means, going here. Well, so I make it a point. I don't just go, well, that was cool. Love that card. I keep it with me. All this week, I kept it with me. The Hermit going within. And in some of our conversation Monday, we covered that also means stuff will start to pop up. Now you might go, I want a different card. I don't want a card that brings stuff up. Oh, I'm sorry for you, So, I don't know, go get bozo clown cards or something, happy cards. If you're going to get through and you trust and you shuffle and something comes up, just say, okay, that's where we're going. It doesn't have to be horrendous. Just that's where we're going. Do it. Do it well. Go for it. Die well, man, of the old self. So I noticed, in my own self, a picture, an image of somebody and a memory of something. And for a split second, I went, God, that's kind of funny. I went, wait, no. Hermit. It came up for me to release it. Your head will go, yeah, I've already worked on that. Shush. It came up. Just do it. But I'm already done with it. Then you won't mind doing it again, will you? If it's showing up, I don't care how far back it goes. I don't care how inconsequential it seems. That's what I do. I do my best to stay dedicated to what I claim to believe. And I claim to believe that this card's going to tell us something for this week. So I do my best to follow it, to practice it instead of just talking it. So yeah, and there's moments where I think, wow, aren't I supposed to be done with issues? And then I just laugh. Yeah, right. There's another one I got to work on now. Laugh at yourself. Don't assume you've read 5 books, you're holy now, and you shouldn't have memories coming back. If it comes up, you're in the shower, a random memory, who knows, 3rd grade, somebody stole my lunchbox. What am I thinking about that for? Just do it. Just say, very briefly, you can do it. I refuse to hate you. I'll learn what I need to learn from this, and I affirm that in you is the light of God, and in me. Done. Any version of whatever I was thinking about you, even if I didn't know I was thinking it, whatever it was, I give to God. And now I welcome in a new vision of you. That's it. A song will come on the radio and you'll laugh. And then something on the TV. And there was one moment I even went doubting the validity of this thing that just popped in my mind. And then I opened my next email and poof, there it was. And I'm like, oh, this is so, and I think it's funny. I mean, certainly some people can get triggered, but to me, when something's so obviously, showing you that it's right, it's aligned, it's kind of funny. And of course you want to sometimes jump off a cliff, but just laugh a little bit because it's pretty funny. This could not have been accidental. And go with it, guys. The love, the forgiveness. So when we get to, there's probably 6 that I shared. Just think you could come up with 10. Sit with this yourself and say, are there any other reasons why I might tend to block the will of God? Yeah, fear, control trips, just kind of check it out and see if you have personal ones that you would add, but then work on them. To me, if I had to name one other one, I would just say there's a part of the ego that's going to try to tell us, if you surrender to God's will, where are you? You're worthless. Honey, I love you, the ego's going to say. I'm just looking out for you, and I'm just trying to say. what does this mean? You've heard it in religions and, God's will. Remember, God's will is beat people up. God's will killed Jesus. That's the God's will you've been programmed to believe. And listen, honey, I love you, man. So I'm just looking out for you. If you and you say, only God's will be done. Shh. Then you become nothing. I want you to exist. God doesn't. God wants you to be absorbed and do its will. It sounds negative. And it'll come up with all kinds of ways to prove it. Logically. Well, wait, if I say, God, I choose to have no will of my own, but just to be your will. Wait, did I just say that? Wait, I want to keep 5% of my own, just in case the 95 goes wonky. I want to be able to step in there and, guys, this is what we do. It's the terror that some of you have had, not all of you probably, some of you have had meditations where you have met what's called the abyss. Absolute, utter darkness. You feel like it's going to just like, it's a void that's beyond the human brain. You can't take it. It's so empty and vast. That's the line between God, heaven, reality, and us. You have to die well. You have to surrender to that thing that terrifies you. But the terrifying thing is not God. God's on the other side going, you silly, you think you're over there having to surrender to me. You're actually still here with me. Surrendering your ego's will by choosing it in your heart only means that there won't be anything more between us. And the ego doesn't want us to know that. So it conjures up these stories. We have to go back to trusting the thing that we don't trust, God. It could be in a meditation you do this. It could be in a near-death experience. Who knows? It varies per person, but choose it one way or the other. Choose God's will. Just choosing, God's will. Somebody said once, the wise person, it wasn't Gandhi, the Dalai Lama was asked, how do you know that this whole thing is real? How do you know that the God you work with and pray with, how do you know that when you die, it's going to be all the stuff you're teaching us? You know what he said? I don't. I won't know until I die. I want a different teacher. I want one that goes, I have proof. I have evidence. That was so beautiful, honest, transparent, and accurate. But he also can be saying, if you listen to it, is, I know. Because why would I be doing all this thinking, I'll find out when I die if I didn't know? Wouldn't I try something else that I could eventually say, I know? So you and I, please, let's get in the habit of saying, I got it now. I know because God tells me. I know because God is. I know because my will is God's will. I have no will of my own, which sounds deprecating in a sense. Little old me, I'm nothing. That's not what it means. By me surrendering to the all, I become all. I become the great by becoming nothing of my ego self. So the ego will is nothing but, and I named 7, I think, things. It's nothing but 7 different categories of excusing itself, justifying to keep you away from your divinity. That's all it is. It makes you doubt. It makes you control freak. It makes you, all these things I named. And all you and I are being asked to do is this. Learn to say no to that voice. And then there's another half, which is where I started 30 minutes plus ago. Not just no to the unhealthy, say yes to the healthy. Choose God. Don't just not choose the ego. Because if I don't choose the ego, I'm sitting here in my heart all alone because I haven't chosen anything else. I sit here alone. My loneliness is going to make me eventually become desperate and call out for anything that will supplement me. Guess who will start speaking again? Hey, I hear you've been lonely. And I'm there for you, man. I'm there for you. You see, and it does it again, all over again. Choose not this, choose this. No, thank you. I'm not interested in that. That sounds like fear. And one simple thing you can do, I think it works brilliantly, is just say, is that the voice of God? Could that be the voice of God when you're thinking about something? I need that person back. I can't live if living is without them. Just stop and go, could that be God? Yeah, God's in heaven going, oh my God, I can't. They have such nice hair, you know. Oh my God, I'll never find somebody with those legs. Really? Can that be God? Can that really be? It isn't. It isn't. It just isn't. How do you know, Michael? You won't know until you die. But just please understand. Use your imagination. Could that be God? You know, I'm worthless because my parents said I'm worthless. Is that the voice of God? No. Your parents were mistaken. It's very easy to use that discernment. Is that the voice of God? We think we don't know how to hear the will of God, the voice of God. It's not that challenging. Love. The voice of love. I will say it works 80-90% of the time. Why only 80-90? Because we're humans. And we still get in the way. There are times when we can say, I want to manifest a new car. Boy, there's the car I was looking for. I even dreamt about that color of a car. It has to be synchronistic. It has to be God. And we go and say, God, I know it's your will. Flip a coin, best out of 5. And then we go, now for sure this is God's will. And sometimes it isn't. You'll even try, listen, God, Michael said to use the compass of love, peace, and joy. Well, you know, God, when I sit in this car, I feel pretty loving and joyous. So this must be you. Guys, I've been there. We all cheat a little like that. It's got to be you, God, because I've never felt so good. Do heroin. You'll feel good. Is that God? No. It's not the stimulation and sedation that I mean by good. Long story short, in 60 seconds is, I remember looking at a car, wanting a car, and going to get a car. And all kinds of funny, synchronicities, and oh my God, even the salesman thought I should have it. That was synchronistic. Guys, everything. I remember sitting in the car, shutting the door, and looking off into the windows of the offices, going, man, well, this looks kind of cool. Just, I know I did all that. And then there was something about the car that didn't feel right. And then when your head starts to go, yeah, but let's pretend it was the payments. It might have been the payments. Let's pretend the payments were $700 and I could only afford $500. What the head starts to do is, but if you don't eat anymore, when you have to think it to rationalize it, it might not be God. And I know this, but God only wants my love and happiness. I left the car lot. I did not feel joyous and happy. So that means where was God? I wanted the car and I didn't get the car. And now I'm leaving unhappy, so I must not have followed God's will. It took several hours. It took going home, going to sleep the next day going, oh my God. You know what I felt? Peace. I did not feel peace when I thought about $700 payments. Something as grounded and practical as the money that they're going to charge you. Do you feel ease and peace around that? When you have to start conjuring in your head, maybe not. When you have to, feel all anxious, maybe not. But Michael, you said when you left, you were not happy. I wasn't. Sometimes, because you and I believe in time, sometimes it takes a little time for you to witness the real answer and the happiness. If you don't know, take a minute. If you don't know, take time. Like with relationships. Oh my God. I have 15 synchronicities that said that this person I met today, there I was in line, Safeway, and I said, will you marry me? And they said yes. What a weird coincidence. They were ready to say yes when I said, would you? Wow, synchronistic, it's God. They're into dogs. That's God backwards. I mean, there's so many synchronicities that you can't lose. Well, I would still say grow your relationship. Oh, I don't need to because, take your time and grow it. Sanity breathes. Anxiety, addiction, that just goes, in that addictive kind of a way. So we'll close now. Peace to all. I know it's not easy. I know that sometimes we say, where is God in this? And there's so many things we run into. Follow peace the best you can. There's going to be times where even following peace, love, joy, and I still slipped. What would God do? Forgive myself for slipping. The more your soul hears you saying, I'm into God's will, the more it'll allow it. The more we call in God's will and say no to the other, the door will start to close on the other. Here's what will happen. It'll starve it out to where myself, my complete self knows now that I'm not really interested in ego-based decisions. And then it'll reopen, like a grand reopening of my being, and the light will start to come down and help me make decisions even to the root chakra. Which financial investments to make? Root chakra. How to make love and with whom? Root chakra. As all the way down to the human level, God can come, but not while we're fighting it with this 50-50 force in the heart center. Please take a few centering breaths. Today, breathing, centering, relaxing. I am relaxed, or I am at peace. Just centering for a moment. Let's meditate on this concept or these words. The truth will set you free. We're talking about making decisions with God, what car to buy, or if even to buy one, who to date, how to date, when to date, what diet to be on, whatever it is. In the day-to-day life, what does it mean? The truth will set you free. Have your own interactions with Spirit right now. Let it teach you. Let it download answers. And to elaborate. Set you free from what? The truth will set you free from what? Ask yourself. Let the guidance come. Just channel it. And again, what kind of truth could possibly set you free from whatever you just said it was going to set you free from? What kind of truth would have that kind of power to set you free from whatever? And because I choose the truth today, I am free. Say that to yourself and believe it. Because I choose, heart center, the truth today, truth, upper chakras, I'm free from the ego's will of the lower chakras. The truth of God sets me free from the ego, but I have to choose it in my heart. I am free as God created me. And so it is. Well done. See, people actually think that free will is choosing against the ego, which it partly is temporarily. But do you know that free will is actually only when you're freely choosing? It's the freedom to choose, that you'll choose only God. Freedom doesn't give you the right to choose ego. When you're free, you won't choose the ego anymore. You have to choose not the ego and choose God. Then you're free. Please stand for our closing prayer. Centering, gratitude for whatever, for the person who was sitting next to you, for what you heard today, for your meditation, whatever it is. Gratitude for the pot-smoking doctor. Helped us laugh. It's all good, man. It's beautiful. Gratitude, appreciation that we have this spiritual center, online and here, that we can come to and learn and grow. The light of God surrounds us. The love of God enfolds us. The power of God protects us. And the presence of God watches over us. Wherever we go, God is, I am, we are, and so it is. Peace be with you all. Thank you.